This is Doug Morse from Morse Brothers Studios. I'm going to give a short video tutorial about the way I've come to mix HC-110 developer. HC-110 is a very concentrated developer. It comes in a syrup form from Kodak, and it's a popular developer, and it's one I've settled on for most all of my black and white work, particularly my large format work with 4x5. I use this in conjunction with FP4+, and on my blog I've described how I've dialed this in for the zone system in terms of the developer, the time for the developer, and how I expose the film to get me a good latitude across the film. So without talking about that too much, what I want to focus on is how I've come to mix the developer. Now the other part of my development process, particularly with large format, is I use Chrome drums. And these drums, they sit in a rotating system. They're really cheap online. If you look for them, you can find them because Chrome isn't supported anymore and people are getting rid of them. And I've got a means of putting the 4x5 film on the inside of the drum, and then I only need a small amount of chemistry. The Chrome drum is set up for about 240 or 250 milliliters of chemistry. So I've settled on 240 milliliters, and then I use dilution B of the HC-110. And what that means is I need 232.5 milliliters of water, and I need 7.5 milliliters of developer. Now, typically what you do when you do this, and this is the way I started, is you sit here with your graduated cylinder, and you go along here and you find out wherever 232.5 is, which is not really well marked on this cheap one. But anyway, you can get close enough. You pour your water in until you get to that point, and then you come along with some sort of a pipette, which is kind of some sort of giant eyedropper. You have to go then find again there where 7.5 milliliters is, and then you've got to draw this into the pipette. You can see that that I've done this here, and it coats the inside of the pipette. So then you have to wash the pipette into the fluid, into the water when you're mixing it, to make sure that you get all the developer, because any developer stuck to the wall of the pipette is developer that you had as part of your volume. And the other thing is, if you overfill the pipette, then all the syrup that sticks to that is actually more than you need. So you have a problem about getting really precise measurements. And I thought this seemed kind of messy to me. So what I've done is I've said there must be a better way to do this, and I started to do this with an idea that I already measure a lot of my water quantities out by just knowing that 1 gram of water is 1 milliliter. It's much simpler to just read it off the scale. I bought a digital scale. You might be able to get away with digital scales that have 1 gram of resolution, but I found that for a lot of chemistry that I mix outside of just this black and white developer, that I found that it's useful to have a 0.1 gram resolution, and that's what this one does here. So I bought it for that purpose. I used to use a kitchen scale that we had that was 1 gram resolution for a while, but I found that I needed to get something that was a little bit better. They're not horribly expensive. And you can find a lot of use for them if you're mixing a lot of different chemicals and whatnot. So that's what I've done. And so what I do is I start out with this, and I go and look at. I turn on the scale. It zeroes out because I've got the bottle on here, so it compensates for that. If I didn't, then I could go and hit the tare function here, and that would zero it out there again. So now it's zeroed out. Now I need to get my water in here, and it's got to be 232.5 milliliters. So you pour this in, keeping an eye on the meter, on the digital display and the scale, and we're at 232.7. It's pretty lucky. Anyway, so that's very, very close to what I need. So now I'm all set. Now I need to get 7.5 milliliters in here. And the question is, how do I get 7.5 milliliters on a gram scale? Now, the material safety data sheet that Kodak has for the HC-110 gives you a specific gravity, and that's great because that tells you what your multiplier is basically. So against water. So water is 1 gram per milliliter. HC-110 turns out to be 1.24 specific gravity. So that means I need to then take that volume that I want, 7.5, and multiply it by 1.24, and now I get about 9.3. So 9.3 grams is 7.5 milliliters, so it's a good number to remember. And so here again, I zero out my scale. I take my developer, and I put it, I've got it in this bottle. Now this bottle is not the standard bottle it comes in. This bottle is a bottle that I use, it's from dishwashing soap, basically. It actually kind of looks like lemon flavored or lemon smelled lemon dishwashing soap. I did this at the behest of some suggestions online when I was investigating the developer. They suggested that you get it into smaller bottles that you can squeeze, because see, I've got air in here from the amount that I've used so far, and I can squeeze almost all the air out. And of course, air is the enemy of developer, oxygen in particular. So this allows me to be very, very efficient with regard to that. So now what I can do is I zero out my scale. I've got my 232.5 milliliters. I want to add 7.5 milliliters to this. That's 9.3 grams, as we discussed, using the specific gravity figure. So the other nice thing about these bottles is they pour really nicely. So now I can just do this again, watching the scale carefully. And I keep pouring. One thing I have to be aware of is that there's a bit of delay, so if I stop, it takes a little while for the scale to catch up. So as I get closer to around 9 grams, then I need to be careful about how fast I go if I'm trying to be super accurate. And of course, that's kind of the point of this whole exercise. And then of course, the other problem is unlike the water, I can't take anything out because it's going in. And the reason I do it in this order is I find it dissolves just that much easier. If I put the developer in first, ahead of the water, then it kind of sticks more to the bottom. It takes a bit more shaking around. And of course, shaking is just more oxygen, which isn't good. But I'm going to use this right away. The other thing is I don't mess around with reusing developer. This is single shot. 6 milliliters of developer, according to Kodak, is the minimum needed to process a roll of 120 film, a roll of 35 millimeter film. We're almost there, 9.3, oh, 9.4, okay, that's close enough. So there I am. But anyway, 6 milliliters of developer is enough to process one roll of 35 millimeter, one roll of 120 film, or 4 sheets of 4x5, or 1 sheet of 8x10. So this is slightly more than that. So if I develop, I'll reuse this. If I'm doing 4 sheets, I'll do 2 sheets at a time in the drum. So I might reuse it once, and then after that, it all goes down the drain. And that's important for me because that means I get consistent results. I don't have to worry about how many times the developer's been used. I'm not mixing big batches of it. I'm doing single batches, but I'm doing them very accurately. You can see it's pretty simple to do this. And then once I'm done, I put the lid on it, and then I give it a couple rocks back and forth. I can see that, and as soon as I see that the syrup's no longer sticking to the bottom, then I'm good to go. And now I have my single shot approach that I can use in my Chrome drum. So that's my finished developer. So that's my simplified method. I think simplified. It's a little more complicated than this, but I think it's a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to get more consistent results doing this. So thank you for watching. I'm Doug Morse from Morse Brothers Studios. Have a good day.